Development, you could say, and listening to other podcasts that have been successful nationally with a focus on our audience being more of the Latinx people of color. And so I started Poder Podcast. I first, of course, looked if the name was taken. So I looked at who owns it.com, went out and saw if anybody was working on this, and not really. So I just took the name and started doing it. I created my own cheap looking logo on canva.com and just went with the bright green. I don't know what I was thinking, and just went for it. Just said, you know what, I just got to start. First episode may have not been the best, but I just kept going and going. A year later, after a few episodes, I realized I should really start this as my business. I've always wanted to start my own business, and I don't know where to start, so I'm just going to look it up. And I looked at my local resources for the city of Santa Barbara, and I saw first step is getting your business license. So that's the first thing I did. Went out, got my business license, chose the name Poder Media, which aligns well with my podcast name, and put in the fictitious request in the newspaper, in the local SB Independent, and saw that nobody said anything, so I was good to go. I have the name Poder Media, and slowly but surely incrementing the amount of energy I put into it. But as the advice I got from an Inc.com article, which is one of my favorite online magazines for business, says, you know, sometimes you just got to have a good paying job where you can be able to subsidize your side hustle until you launch it into the business you want it to be. So that's what I'm working on currently, just being my side hustle and eventually launching it into a greater, bigger company where I can actually hire people, and hopefully I'll be there in a few years.
That's awesome. And Sergio, I really liked what you were saying too earlier about how, you know, you just started. It might not have been the perfect thing at first, but that's what's really unique about the entrepreneurial journey, is that you can keep improving as you go. So Wade, I'd like to hear from you. What was your process of launching and scaling your startup like?
Yeah, absolutely. This is like, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here. I want to start by saying, I think Patty's advice to get some help is some of the best advice that I could possibly give. I wouldn't be where I am today without a lot of coaches along the way. I'm a coach, but that means that I especially believe in coaching. So I have a lot of coaches. It's a really important step, somebody to bounce ideas off of, give you a sense of, I'm not alone in this journey, because sometimes it can feel isolating. It can feel stressful. It's all on you at first. So anywhere that you go, I think the most important thing is that you ask for help early on. It's super, super, super important to do that. And then speaking to what Sergio said, it's going to be messy when you first get started, and to take yourself out of a place where any judgment is happening of it's not good enough, it's not perfect. There's a piece of advice that I try to adhere to, is I just try to get everything 70% done. And if it gets to 70% done, then I'm happy with it and I push it out. And 70%, that doesn't mean that I'm not striving to do absolutely excellent at everything that I do. That's super important for you to hold yourself to something like that, whatever your standard is. But just to take perfectionism off the table and get to the point where you're one foot in front of the other, because it is an iterative process being an entrepreneur. And it's so important to have acceptance for yourself that you're going to mess up, and to learn from that, to stay open, to make sure that you're getting all the information that you can possibly get. It takes a lot of humility to do that. So always be asking yourself questions. How can I do this better? What's getting in my way? It's super, super, super powerful.
I love what you're saying about 70% too. I think a lot of times people can get caught up in having to have that perfect product or idea out there, but really it's just about what's going to be good enough to get you to that next step. So speaking of steps, Wade, this actually transitions great into our next question for all of you panelists. What is the first step someone should take when they want to start a business?
Sure. So I take a lot of my high performance coaching clients through an exercise. It's called starting a fire. So to start a fire, you need three things. You need wood, you need a spark, and you need oxygen. So the analogy that I take them through is using this fire. We can relate each of those pieces of a flame to something in our life. So the spark is our passion. We need something to have a source of passion in our life, because entrepreneurship can be a struggle. So unless you're really passionate about something, it's going to make it a whole lot harder to stick with it. So that's an important thing. The other piece of that is the wood itself, the actual material that we are going to use to make this, to provide the energy to stoke the flame. So that's our purpose. So somewhere within you, it's within all of us. And I always encourage people to look at your story, look at your life. What lessons have you learned? Somewhere in there is a purpose and a message. And that purpose in your message is what fuels your entrepreneurial journey. You are here to share something with the world, and you are here to be of service to others. That's what entrepreneurship is. And to have that sense of purpose and to continually reconnect with that, that is the source of fuel for your fire. So you need those two things. You need something to light it. But there's also this third piece. There's the oxygen. If you put a cover over a flame, it goes out. Fire needs oxygen to burn. So what is the oxygen in our entrepreneurial journey? It's the people that we serve. So the people that we serve are so vital to our entrepreneurial journey. They sustain our business. They're our customers. They're not only the people that are paying us to help them, but also the people that are continually teaching us, how can we show up bigger and bigger? How can we grow this enterprise? How can we keep doing what we care about doing? How can we keep doing that better and better and better? And so how can we continue to create amazing results for our customers, for our clients, and everyone else? So that's what I would say. For the first step, there's many first steps, but for the first step, decide what it is you care about enough to go after. Decide who it is that you care about enough to really help, because that's the most important thing, in my opinion.
That's great. And yeah, I really do think at the end of the day, it does come down to the people that you're serving. And that's always going to change throughout the process too. So always really important to keep that in mind as an entrepreneur. So Sergio, what would you say is the first step that someone should take when they're starting a business?
The first step, and similar to what Wade was explaining, is starting with your vision. And it's either profit driven or human value driven, right? Like, what business problem do you want to solve and make a profit out of it? Or what, in the world that we live in today, what problem can you fix and solve that? And you could either do nonprofit or for profit. Either way, it's a business that you have to operate. So with that vision in mind, going with what Patty was saying early on, is go with someone and share that vision and see what feedback you get. Because based on that feedback, you can even think about it and revise your vision, because that nothing can be taken too personally when explaining that. You got to be open-minded, and as an entrepreneur, it's easy to explain that because you're open-minded about all these ideas that come in, and you probably get 10 ideas a day as an entrepreneur and figure like, no, I'm going to put that one in my parking lot, or that one's for 10 years from now, or maybe I can incorporate that into my grand concept of the company I'm building right now, which is why I chose Full Ed Media, because the word media can mean a lot of things. So choosing something vague as your vision can really help you pick up pieces along the way, and you can really build something from that start. And once you have the vision more concrete, then you can start building your team and start getting your kitchen cabinet, or you can call it your executive unofficial committee, to help you, and different resources that you can align your vision with and your mission, and eventually start with small tasks. Build a Trello or an Asana task management page so that you can really track your progress and celebrate all your small wins, because that's really what it's going to be like in the first steps, celebrating your small wins.
Definitely. It's always important to celebrate the small wins. And I really like what you're saying too about having the planning aspect. So there's that accountability so you can make that vision a reality. So Patty, for you, what would you say the first step would be?
Well, this team is really on top of it because they've shared several things that were on my mind as well. But I would say, probably the first step is really to get real about your passion. Do you want to start a business because you want to just make money, or you want it to be like a passive thing, or do you really want to dive in and put in the work? I would say most people would want to put in the work, but sometimes, like I remember one of my first business ideas, that wasn't really, I don't know, an idea, but I heard that owning a laundromat would be like this really great passive income that, you could, arrange, and it's super easy and you make a lot of money. And so I was on the hunt, looking for a laundromat for actually quite a while. And at some point I just kind of like, it was actually very difficult when I was looking for one. And because it got hard, I kind of gave up, and it wasn't really that big of a deal to give up. I was never really passionate about it to begin with. And when you're going to be in business, it's going to be hard for a while. I don't know if it ever really gets like super easy. But when it's something you're really passionate about, that doesn't really faze you. You're just so happy and excited to be doing the work that you love to do, that it all feels like a great experience. It feels like fun. So for me, in this kind of party planning space and working with small businesses and creating beautiful decor is just what I love doing. And to Sergio's point, there's so many avenues that you can take, that it's infinitely exciting. So getting real about your passion is one of the most important things. I'll just add a couple more, just as kind of pinging off of what the team said so far. But the other thing, I'm 42, and I'm a mom, and I have a career, and this is my pursuit, my passion pursuit, along with I'm still working for my full-time job, and so there's a lot of other commitments that I have, and so it's one of the things is that I would say is just to, again, depending on where you are in life, but really being real with your partner and your family about the commitment and what it's going to take. And you may not know going into this what it's going to take, but it's really important for you to choose a partner that's going to be supportive of your passions, is not going to take things personally when you choose to not go and do things because you want to do something related to your business or your passion. And kind of have that sit down talk with, maybe it's your parents too, like if they're not really sure if this is where you're going with this, but just be honest and share your excitement about what it is that you're doing. My boys are actually a little bit older, but we would sit around and I made everybody read Think and Grow Rich, which is a great book. If you guys haven't read it, it's really inspiring. But it was so important for them to read the chapter about choosing a great partner, because it's going to make a huge difference in your success if you have somebody that is going to support you and support your dreams. So I would just say, talk to the folks that are around you. You want to get their love and support, and then you just want them to know, like, if you're not going to do something because you have to choose something else, they understand, and you don't need someone else kind of making you feel guilty about doing what you need to do because you don't have that support around you. So there's lots more to share, but I would say those two are kind of big ones in my book.
Totally. I think support is so important in the entrepreneurial journey. There's so many ups and downs that you're going to go through. So to have people you can count on is really important. So we're going to move on to the next question for Stefan. So at their core, entrepreneurs are problem solvers. What is the biggest obstacle you have faced and how did you overcome it? Oh, the sound is off.
Also, Stefan, can you repeat what it is that you do?
I'll tell you what I do. Sorry, I missed the introduction period. So I own a company called Coronado Sign, and I make novelty street signs. Got into making hats, license plate frames, but basically novelty street signs. I'm in my office, which is my garage, so you can see that my workshop is here. Make everything on site in Coronado and San Diego. But the biggest obstacle that I have, and you can't really see it in the Zoom call, is I'm in a wheelchair. I've been in a wheelchair for 24 years. I was in a diving accident. I broke my I broke my 6th vertebrae on my neck, so I'm paralyzed from my mid chest down, and it happened a year after college, and threw a little loop in my world, and so to speak, and so overcoming that has been my biggest challenge to date. And I tried the corporate world for 6-7 years. I worked at an advertising agency. I sold life insurance. I did sales, and I just at the end of the day, quality of life for me is the most important part of our journey. And so I wanted to kind of figure out something that I could do. I could make a living. I could make it to all my kids' sporting events. I can make it to these kind of meetings, whatever, and just kind of control my own destiny, so to speak. So I had an idea. So the first step I had was an idea. I collect license plates, but also I grew up in Vail, Colorado, and when I was growing up, one of my childhood friends, they had a gift shop in Vail, and they made custom trail signs for people like to bring back as a souvenir. And when I moved to Coronado, I'm like, God, that might be something good, because Coronado is a pretty touristy place. So I started making these signs. I have no idea what I'm doing, no idea how to use the programs. And so I had this idea, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't want to go into a 9-to-5 job. And so I just went full force into it. Well, looking back like 2 years, a lot of my jobs were at farmers markets. And when the pandemic hit, all the farmers markets closed down. So majority of my business was gone. And at that point, this is what kind of connected me to this group, actually, is I met somebody here that told me about it. I met somebody in the group, the I Partied and I Lived group, that was part of this, and he told me about this Greek Interconnect. And I posted like 5 signs in that group, like the first month that was there, and literally for the last year and a half to, I have been making Isla Vista stuff for people in this group, and I've gone online, and it's really it just saved me. So it's just like you pivot from one place to another, and that, the pandemic is definitely an obstacle, but you figure out how to kind of work around it and make it better, and that's kind of my life.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, there's always going to be a lot of big challenges and obstacles, and it's really inspiring to hear your story about how you dealt with all that. And yeah, pivoting is a huge part of entrepreneurship too. So it's neat to see how it all ties in together. So before we move on to our last question, I wanted to encourage the panelists to post any opportunities that they may be having at their startups that you gauchos could be involved with. So check out the chat to see the opportunities there. And then Sergio, I'd love to hear from you to wrap this all up. How has being part of the UCSB Greek alumni community impacted your success as an entrepreneur?
Yes, thank you for that question. And one of the main things I wanted to answer that is the experience as an undergrad or even an alumni volunteer in your Greek letter organization. You have a lot of transferable skills that are truly entrepreneurial, because you got to think, how do I create a fundraiser? How do I make an event? How do I make things internally better for my group? So being that you have that innovative mindset, you already have those skills to transition into the entrepreneurial world. It's just, like I mentioned earlier, and we all have, is how do you build that fire, like Wade said, and what ingredients do you need to make that happen? And in another sense, in my personal experience, being in a national fraternity I was able to connect with George Torres, a well-known Latinx influencer and media specialist out from the East Coast. And he has really coached me through his Sembra initiative and all these different aspects of the world of media and podcasting, anything to do with building an audience. He has really helped me channel those skills into the work I want to do. So he has really humbled me down and really noticed what my strengths are and where the gaps are. So having a coach that you could really trust, I would say look internally into that network that you're already part of. You don't need to start branching out yet. I would say connect with those. If you have a directory, look up who is an entrepreneur, who is a business owner within your sorority or fraternity, whether it's social or business. Look into that first, and then also look into, because you have developed these networking skills while you were in the Greek letter organization, you have the capacity to meet people, and that must energize you to be social, and you have the you know how to implement that. You know that you are able to do this. And another sense too, one of my fraternity brothers, Adam Torres, who is an entrepreneur down in Southern California, he has his own financing business, and he's always talking about you yourself are a business. And learning that from him, if it wasn't for being in this fraternity, I wouldn't have met him and been close to him in that network. So when he said, you are a business, you, Sergio A. Lagunas, you did research and development while you were a student in undergrad, and then later you start building your career. So you yourself, if you start seeing yourself as that, you're the executive of your own business or of your own name, you can start practicing that mindset of being an entrepreneur. So really it's both the experience, all the entrepreneurial skills that are transferable, and then of course tapping into your network is really where it's at when it comes to acknowledging everything that you value in your fraternity or sorority and incorporating that into your business or entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting too about, the power of the network too, and being able to tap back into your fraternities and sororities way beyond your years at UCSB. So thank you all for being part of this amazing panel today. Just a reminder that everyone's put in the chat the different opportunities at their businesses. I encourage you to follow all the panelists on LinkedIn and also connect with each other too in the audience. I think all of you have the similar interest in entrepreneurships and startups, and it's really important to get that Greek Interconnect community going. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming today, and enjoy the next panels at Greek Interconnect.